Today's session is called Selling Happiness, How to Create Customer Experiences that Inspire Loyalty and Encourage Referrals. This will make you much more aware on how to understand the reactions of customers to information that is promoted to them and how they react subconsciously to this information, and should hopefully make you better marketers in your own businesses. Let's have a good warm welcome to Mark Gordon.
Whoa, good afternoon, holy cow. 3:30 in the afternoon and you're all still awake? This is awesome. You are awake, right? Yeah, all right. Let's hear it. If you're awake, give me a booyah. All right. Woo, have you had enough of IT for now? Can we take a little IT break for a little bit? I think we should. Julian earlier, he was talking about Uber. I love Uber. Quick show of hands, who here has ever been stuck in the back of an Uber car? Yeah, a number of you. Okay, so those who've taken it know what I'm talking about. Those of you who have not, you know how it works. You take out the app, you call the vehicle, and you pay money to get into an unmarked vehicle with a total stranger and hope to go someplace you've never been before, alive. What a concept. What a concept. So I take Uber a lot. I'm sure some of you have. And what's really cool about Uber is you never really know what you're going to get. You don't know whether the car's going to be big or small or clean or dirty. And the person driving Uber, well, that's a whole mystery in itself. It could be some elderly person who's just making a few bucks after retirement. Could be someone new to the country. I got picked up from the airport once by someone who was so new to the country, I'm convinced they were sitting in front of me on the plane. So, I decided to take Uber with my family. We were traveling to Denver. My wife and I, our two kids, and I was going to take Uber from Denver International Airport downtown to our hotel about 45 minutes away. So we get to the airport, we land there in Denver. I take out my phone, I open the app, I request an Uber, and within seconds I'm told that a guy named Mike is going to come and pick me up in a Dodge Caravan. Now, anyone who's seen a Dodge Caravan on the road knows that they're a pretty sad sight. Most of them should be off the road. So I'm getting kind of nervous. What safety have I put my family in? What risk will we encounter? We're out there in the pickup area, my wife and I, our two kids, and our luggage. After a couple minutes, a beautiful black, shiny Dodge Grand Caravan pulls up in front of us. And out walks this big burly guy. And he says, "Hi, I'm Mike. Are you Mark?" And I said, "Yeah." He goes, "Welcome to Denver." And he opens the side door, and my wife and kids hop in the back. I hop in the front. He hops in, and we drive away. As soon as we start moving, he turns to us and says, "So, where are you folks from?" We say, "Toronto." He says, "Toronto? That's a long flight. You guys must be thirsty." And he reaches down between the driver and passenger seat, opens up a cooler, and inside the cooler is a selection of bottled waters and juices. So everyone grabs some juice and water. We're all happy. Then he turns to my kids and says, "You guys like music?" They say, "Sure." So he hands them an iPad. And on this iPad is every song recorded since the dawn of time, arranged by genre and artist. And it's wirelessly connected to the sound system of the van. My kids are in heaven, drinking juice, listening to their favorite songs. I'm looking around the van, and it still has that new car smell. It is spotless inside. And I notice coming out of the dashboard are all these cables just hanging out of the dash. I take a closer look, and he had a charging station installed directly into the dashboard. And hanging out were cables to charge any device you could imagine. On the trip to the hotel downtown, he talked about all the landmarks that we passed, history, but the state of Colorado and Denver, all the best places to shop and eat. Of course, we talked about politics. And in no time at all, we were at the hotel. He let us out, told us to have a great time during our stay in Denver, and drove off. Holy cow! Was that the greatest Uber trip ever? I think it was. You guys agree. You haven't even been on the trip. And you agree it was the best Uber trip ever. But I think back of everything he gave us. All the things that we got from Mike. And I have to ask myself, if there was no bottled water and juice, if there was no iPad with music, if there was no charging station, would we still have been just as wowed? Would you? I think so. Courteous, friendly, safe, on time, everything you'd want. But you know what? He went above and beyond. Way above and beyond. And you know what's interesting is all those extra things in there, the iPad, the charging station, the juice, who paid for that? He did. His per transaction cost went up. His per transaction cost went up, and it didn't need to. And here's the weird part. We couldn't use him again. Because the way Uber works, you can't request a specific driver. So all that work and all the love we had for him, and we couldn't even return the business. We couldn't use them again. You know, I'm reminded of that movie with Tom Cruise and Renee Zellweger, Jerry Maguire. Any of you seen that movie? I'll just refresh your memory. The movie, he plays a sports agent, and she's his receptionist, and they start their own company together. And they have a romantic relationship, and like in any movie, the relationship hits a rough patch, and they're trying to get it together, trying to fix things up. And in this specific scene I'm thinking of, Renee Zellweger is at home. She's at home talking with all her friends, and they're all talking about how terrible relationships are, or more specifically, how terrible men are. Just awful. We are awful, aren't we, men? We're awful. And they're all talking about this. And then all of a sudden, in walks Tom Cruise, and he says hello to everybody. And then him and Renee Zellweger, their eyes meet. And he goes into this monologue where he says how much he loves her, how he can't live without her, how she completes him. And she says, stop. Just stop. And she says, you had me at hello. You had me at hello. He didn't need to do the whole monologue. She was happy just having him show up. But he didn't know that. He didn't know what her expectations were. So he went above and beyond. Every single one of your customers has a hello point. Every single one. Even you, as buyers and your suppliers, you have a hello point. That point where they've won you over. Now, sometimes they may not even reach that hello point. And sometimes they'll go above and beyond. And just like Mike from Uber, the question is, did they need to? You see, it's all about managing expectations. And expectations are an interesting thing because they can be influenced by any number of factors, and they can be different from one person to another or even one industry to another. But essentially, if you understand what impacts expectations, you can better reach those expectations. So there are essentially three things. Now, just to give you a heads up really quick, if you're like me, you hate making notes. So what I did is I made some notes for you. On your desk, you should have a little brochure. I've made some notes for you to get you started. Feel free to add whatever notes you like. If you don't have one, just put your hand up and Veronique will come around and give you one. So there are essentially three things that influence expectations: fact, fiction, and imagination. Fact, pretty straightforward stuff. It's whatever happens to you, your experience, what you've done, where you've been, how you've done it. It's fact because it happened to you. Nobody can take that away. You go to a restaurant. The food is spectacular. The atmosphere is wonderful. The service impeccable. That is fact. You leave that restaurant knowing full out that if you return to that restaurant, you will receive the same level of service. In fact, that expectation influenced by fact is so strong that if you tell someone else you were at that restaurant and they say, you went there to eat? I went there, the food was awful, the service sucked, music was too loud, the atmosphere was terrible, we wouldn't go back. What would you say? You'd say, that's really weird. I loved it. I would go back. They can't change your mind because fact is so solidified in your mind. That expectation has been so set. There's only one thing that can change that expectation: the experience itself. If you go back to that restaurant and the service and the food and the ambiance isn't what it was, then your expectation will change. The second one is fiction, which essentially is the experience of somebody else. Somebody else's experience, and they come back and they share it with you. A friend of yours goes on vacation and they come back and they talk about how there was like all these buffets all day. The weather was fantastic. The pools were great. There was lots of activities for the adults and kids. I guarantee you, 100% I guarantee you, that they're embellishing. That the things that were awful were pretty bad, according to them, but may not have been that bad. The things that were really good to them, but may not have been really that good. It's their own opinion, their own ideas, based on their own values. So for them, it's fact, but it's not your story. So that is fiction. And imagination is the most interesting one of all. Imagination is based on something that none of us can actually define. It can be our opinion of the world based on where we grew up, how we grew up, our gender, our race, our religion, things we experienced as a child or saw our relatives do. Think about this. Halloween was just a couple weeks ago. Maybe you told this to your kids. I know I grew up with this. Maybe you did too. When you were a kid, did your parents ever tell you about the apples? What would they say if somebody offered you an apple? You ring the doorbell, you say trick or treat, and someone gives you an apple. What did they say to do with the apple? Take it or don't take it? Don't take it. Right? That's what they would say. Don't take the apple. Why? Because somebody could have poisoned it. Somebody could have put a razor blade in it. Did you ever hear that? I used to grow up with that. Everybody knew you just don't take an apple at Halloween. Here's the thing, though. In the last 50 years throughout North America, there has not been one recorded instance of a child being hurt or killed as the result of biting into a poisoned apple at Halloween or one that was covered in razor blades. It's never happened. And yet, our imagination tells us that such a thing could be a possibility, and we tell our kids, don't take the apple. Now, all of these things impact expectations, and expectations impact loyalty. They impact loyalty, and at the end of the day, that is what you want. If your customers are not loyal to you, they'll leave. If your customers leave you, there's a good chance you will go out of business. Pretty straightforward stuff right there. But there's a perception out there about how this works, the relationship between loyalty and expectations. And this was started back in the 1980s. A very famous book called In Search of Excellence was written by a guy named Tom Peters. Some of you may have heard of it. And in this book, Tom Peters talks about how companies would go above and beyond to do whatever it takes to make their customers happy, regardless of cost, regardless of resources. This was in the 80s. Everything was big in the 80s. The women had big hair and big shoulder pads. The men had big suits and big glasses. And companies spent big. It's 2017. I don't remember any company looking for ways to spend big. But what was in that book has been taught in schools since. And let me explain. It goes very, very simple. If you do not meet the expectations of your customers, they will not be very happy. And if they're not happy, they won't be loyal. All right? If you manage to meet their expectations, they will be happy. And happy customers are loyal. And then according to this school of thought, if you exceed their expectations, they will become more loyal and continue to buy from you. And as you increase expectations, they become more and more loyal. There is a direct correspondence between how much you wow them and how loyal they become. Okay, this is poppycock. This is BS. This is baloney. It might have applied in 1983, but it doesn't apply today. All right? This is how things work today. As before, if you don't meet their expectations, they're not going to be very happy and not buy from you. You're going to lose customers. If you meet their expectations, they're going to be happy, and happy customers buy from you. But here's where things get interesting. If you exceed their expectations, look what happens to their loyalty. It just goes up a little bit. You see, because loyalty has a plateau. Every one of us, our loyalty towards the brand of car we buy, the brand of electronics we buy, sometimes even to our spouse, it plateaus. The only creature on this planet that is 100% loyal is a dog. And unless any of you have dogs that are clients, then it's not going to apply. Some laughs. Do you have some dogs as clients? They seem like dogs, maybe. So you have to understand that everybody has a plateau, all right? Your customers may love you, but I promise you, the minute you drop the ball or the minute they're not happy, they've got your competitor on speed dial. Because their loyalty can only hit so far. Now, some of you might be thinking, well, how far do I go? I want to wow them. I want to make them happy. Are you saying that I shouldn't? That I shouldn't try to wow my customers? No. No, what I'm saying is there's a way to do it. There's a way to do it. And this chart is actually in this folder, and I'm going to tell you the secret right now, the sweet spot. So, customer at the top, you at the bottom. Your customer is going to have expectations. All right? Every customer, and you can even put yourself in these shoes towards your own vendors. Every customer has a predefined set of expectations. You have no problem with that. That's what SLAs are for. So you understand their expectations. They're normal, everyday expectations, and these are things that you normally do. All right? They expect your staff to be knowledgeable and professional and courteous. They expect your products to be decent. They expect you to have a high degree of product knowledge. Now, some customers will also have what I like to call wants and desires. And wants and desires are things beyond the everyday expectations. Now, for you guys, as VARs or whatever you want to label yourself, these are things that you have the ability and capacity to do. All right, the ability and the capacity. Meaning that you can do it without killing yourself. All right, if they want you to stay an extra hour, if they want you to put in that extra time or that extra effort or upgrade that product, these are things you can do. And for certain customers, I know you're doing it. But it's not official. You don't do this for everybody. And then you're going to have customers, and I know in this industry you have them. You have customers who have dreams and fantasies. And customers with dreams and fantasies have no concept of space and time. They don't understand you're running a business, that you need to make money, that you need to turn a profit. They don't understand that you can't be in two places at once. They are in it for themselves. All right? But when it comes to you, you have the ability to service them, but not the capacity. Meaning if someone calls you up and says they need technicians at their place of business in the next 30 minutes, can you do it? The answer is yes. Yes, you can. You can put somebody in a car and drive them over in 30 minutes. All right? You can do that. And if the customer says, I need them to stay all night and do whatever needs to be done, and don't charge me, can you do it? Yes, you can. You can instruct that person to do it. But do you have the capacity to do it? You do not. Can you afford to give up that technician? Can you afford to pay him the amount that he needs to do the job and not collect the money from your customer? No, you do not have the capacity. So the sweet spot where you can wow them without sapping all your resources and driving yourself crazy, it's right here. This is the sweet spot. You go just a little bit beyond everyday expectations. Just a little bit. And I'm going to go into that in more detail later. But this is the sweet spot. Now, whenever I give this presentation, there's always somebody who comes up to me afterwards and says, you know, I don't buy into this. We're not a company that says no. We're a yes company. Customer is king. We do whatever it takes. If they have wants and desires, we'll satisfy them. If they have dreams and fantasies, we'll satisfy those too. Do you know companies like this in your industry? I guarantee you they won't be around for long. In fact, they may not even be around now. Because here's what's interesting. If you bust your butt to do that, your costs increase by 10 to 30%. Can you imagine your costs? And these are costs you can't recoup. Your costs increase by 10 to 30% per transaction, and the happiness factor only increases by 10 to 15%. 10 to 15% of the time they're happy. The rest of them think this is everyday stuff. This is normal. And guess what? When it becomes normal, you have to do it all the time. Now, it's not just about loyalty. and wowing them and meeting expectations, it's also about stress. Are your customers stressed when they call you? I'm willing to bet yes. When was the last time a customer called you needing your help desperately and was in a great mood? It never happens. They're calling you because they're stressed. Here's what's interesting. If you can make them happy, that's great. But when the transaction goes south, it has 4 times the impact. That means if you wow them and make them happy 4 times, and then something goes wrong, that one negative experience could potentially wipe out all the good you've done. The factor is 4 times. Now, not every company needs to wow. This is what's really interesting. There's entire industries that have been built on not trying to wow people, but just to make it a seamless, effortless transaction. Think about the last time you bought a cup of coffee. You went into Tim Hortons, Starbucks, Second Cup, wherever. I want you to take a moment and just think about the last time you did that. Think about, was the line long or short? Was the music playing loud or quietly? Did you have to wait long to get to the front of the line? Was the person behind the counter male or female? How did you pay? Cash, credit, debit, gift card? How long did you wait for the order? I don't even need to ask because I know that none of you remember. Why? Because this task is so ordinary, so regular, that it didn't even warrant your attention. There's a good chance, if you're like most people, you were probably on the phone or texting or checking your social media status, because it was such an ordinary experience that you couldn't even be bothered to remember who was on the other side of the counter. And that is what makes it so perfect. These coffee chains aren't trying to wow you. Nobody ever walks out of a Tim Hortons and says, yes, woo, double, double. Nobody ever does that. But you know what? If they screwed up your order, if your coffee was cold, you'd be pissed and you'd remember. So their job is to simply create an effortless, stress-free transaction. So if we look at the definition of what makes a great customer experience, it's easy to say one that meets or exceeds expectations, but you could also say one that has no negative occurrences. How easy is that for you guys to create a transaction that simply has no negative occurrences? It is stress-free and effortless. And today, I'm going to show you how to do that, how to make your customers happy without driving yourself crazy. Because I see so many industries, so many companies busting their butt to make their customers happy, and it's not working. So I'm going to show you how to manage it. You guys are okay with that? Give me an oh yeah. All right, let's do it. First thing you got to do is be true to your own personal and corporate values. All right, and it sounds easy to do, but it's not, because we have a habit of wanting to be what we think others are. All right, so the first thing you need to do is come to terms that the customer you think you want may be the customer that hurts your business. All right, the customer you think you want may be the customer that hurts your business. You know what? I want to take a minute. I want to come down here. I want to share with you a story. When I was around 12 years old, I was short, skinny, I had big hair, bad acne, and for some reason I wore brown a lot. And there were these cool kids, and I wanted to be like the cool kids. So I would do everything I could to get them to like me. I would try to dress like them, I would try to talk like them, to act like them, to say the things that I thought they'd want to hear. And it never worked, and every day I'd come home and I'd be stressed and upset that these kids wouldn't let me into their group. And one day, my mother, she notices how upset I am. And she comes to me, she puts her hand on my shoulder, and she says, Mark, why are you so upset? And I said, because these kids, they won't be friends with me. And she said to me, Mark, those kids that are truly your friends will like you for who you are. Those kids that are truly your friends will like you for who you are. And I gave it some thought, and I realized my mother had absolutely no idea what she was talking about through the eyes of a 12-year-old. But today, we would tell that to our kids, wouldn't we? We believe it ourselves. We would never be friends with someone who makes us change who we are or how we dress or how we talk. But as businesses, we do this thing where we have a target market. What do you think a target market is? A target market is the group of the cool kids. It's that group that we view as being the ideal customer. So what do? We try to present ourselves in a way that attracts them. The problem is with the target market is they half the time don't know what they want. They're fluid. They're constantly changing and evolving. And for you to chase them, you have to constantly change and evolve, and that gets expensive, and you can lose focus. So I'm telling you to think about who should be on the other end when the phone rings. When the phone rings and there's a new customer on the other end, and it's the perfect customer, what are the traits of that perfect customer? Is that customer one that is focused on price? Is the customer one that focused on service? Is it the customer that says, just do whatever it takes and just treat us fairly? Just send us a bill. Who's your ideal client? And here's the cool thing about this. Some of you may be competitors in this room, but I believe to a degree you're not. Because it's okay to go after that different ideal client, to attract a different one. All right? It's okay, if you were selling cars, it's okay to be an economy brand. Because I assure you that Ferrari has never lost a customer to Kia. Never. And it's okay to be Kia. And it's okay to be Ferrari. And it's okay to be something in between. But what it has to be is something that you're okay with, not what they're okay with. Otherwise, you're not going to be attracting the kind of customer that appreciates and values what you do. Managing expectations. I know you guys in the IT business, you work some crazy hours. You guys work crazy hours sometimes? I know you do. Anyone here ever gone to McDonald's late at night or just any time you need something quick, it's the only place that's open? You go to I know you do. I know you go to McDonald's. And when you go to McDonald's, what do you order? You order a Big Mac, right? And this is what you expect. But when you get back to your table and you open your little shoebox, what's inside? This is what's inside. Now, how many of you have ever gone back to the front counter and said, this is not what I want? I want the one in the picture. You've never done it. Nobody has ever done it. Because McDonald's has managed your expectations. They know that you know that you're going to get the one on the right. You're going to get the squished, sad-looking Big Mac, and you're going to eat it. And then you're going to come back again and order it again, and you're going to eat it. They've managed your expectations because you know it's the same thing every time. The worst thing McDonald's could ever do is give you the one on the left. Because you know what? You're going to expect that all the time now. They've managed your expectations. They've gone so far as to post videos explaining why you won't get the one on the left. They've gone out of their way to manage expectations. You need to manage expectations. And I'm going to tell you a little trick that I've done for my own company, and I've shared this trick with clients. And if there's one thing, one nugget of information you take with you today from this presentation, this is it. Anyone here, just by a quick show of hands, who here has ever done something for free for a customer? You've done something a little above and beyond. You've done something extra and not charged. Okay, here's what you do. You do something extra. Let's put a value on it, $500. You send them an invoice for that free service. You don't include it with the other stuff. So if you've done 5 services plus 1 free, you send them the invoice for the 5 services, and then you send them a separate invoice for the free service. And on that invoice, you itemize the service, exactly what you did, and you say it's $500. Right under that, you add another line that says preferred client discount, $500. And the balance at the bottom of the invoice is 0. Two things you're going to do with that. Two things you're going to accomplish. Number one, you're going to make your customers very happy. How cool is it when you get an invoice from a company, you open it up and the balance is 0? Oh my God, that feels so good, doesn't it? It doesn't happen very often. Occasionally it happens. They'll open up the invoice and the amount will be 0. You've made them feel good. The second thing is you've added value to what you've done. They know that they are now getting $500 worth of free stuff. And when they put value on it, they appreciate it. Nobody appreciates anything that has no value. If you find $20 on the floor, go to a convenience store and spend it on lottery tickets, and they're all losers, you won't be upset. You lost nothing. But if you had to work for that $20, and then you go and you buy the lottery tickets and you don't win anything, you will be pissed because that $20 had value. It's all about letting the customer know that you are providing value even when you're providing something for free. Everybody here, I'm convinced, well, I think it's a known thing that you all have staff. All right? I'm going to assume that your staff are professional, that they're knowledgeable, that they care about the customer. The problem is, there's always going to be one. There's always going to be one person at your company who will totally screw things up for you. Someone who lacks any kind of interpersonal skills. Somebody who's not on board with your ideas and your beliefs. And guess what? That's probably the person who's talking to the customer. Maybe that's the receptionist who picks up the phone, who has a bad day every day. Maybe that's the technician who's the last person to see the customer. And he's going there, and he hates his wife, he hates his kid, he's in debt, he's in a bad mood, and he's showing up representing your company. And your customer goes to him and says, "Do you think you'll be done by 5 o'clock?" And he's lurking, and he's, right? You ever have technicians like that? Get away from me, leave me alone. That's your worst salesperson. All the work that your marketing team is doing, all the work your salespeople are doing, gone. He just killed it for all of you. You got to make sure that everybody from the top down is on the same page of the same beliefs as you. Because it only takes one negative interaction. Remember the ratio, right? One good experience can be offset 4 times by a negative one. Are you going to allow some staff member to have that kind of power over your relationship with your customers? Something worth asking yourself. The next thing you want to do is identify sticky spots or potential sticky spots. Now, a sticky spot is something along the journey that can mess up, something that can maybe not go right. Think of it this way, if your transaction with a customer was a road, ideally it would look like this. Wouldn't this be nice if every transaction looked like this? If it was smooth, easy, pleasurable, that would be awesome, wouldn't it? But in this industry, I'm willing to bet a lot of your transactions probably look more like this. Things are just going bad. Things take extra time. It's difficult getting parts, difficult getting technicians there. Things just aren't going right. The trick is to understand these things or what could happen before it happens, to anticipate it. That's what defines your ability to give your customer the best chance of having that seamless, smooth transaction. Now, here's what's really interesting, is that sometimes sticky spots are not what you think. A sticky spot to you is not necessarily a sticky spot to your customer. You've all been in one of these, I'm sure. A lineup at the movie theater. People hate this. The theater companies have done studies, and they found that people can't stand being stuck in line at the movie theater. I don't know about you guys, but I'm convinced when I'm standing in line, The person at the very front who's about to buy a ticket is buying a ticket to see the movie I want to see, and they're going to sit in the seat that I want. I don't like standing in line. I don't think you guys do either. So the movie companies, they did this study, and they found this was a major sticky spot. So they said, okay, we're going to make it so that people don't have to stand in line. We're going to allow people to buy movie tickets online. They can buy tickets at home and skip the line, and there we take care of the sticky spot. Yet in 2016, only 25% of all movie tickets were purchased online. Why? Because people don't plan ahead to go see a movie. People spontaneously decide to see a movie. They're just driving around. They're going out for dinner. Hey, what should we do after dinner? Let's go see a movie. They don't want to go home and have to log on and buy a ticket online. They're not going to plan it that morning to see a movie that evening and log on and buy a ticket. So the real problem, the real sticky spot, was not trying to get people to stop buying tickets at the movie theater, but to not have to stand in line to do so. So that's when the theater companies introduced kiosks. You've probably seen them. Maybe you've bought tickets from them. Freestanding kiosks. You can bypass the line and go to a kiosk and buy a movie ticket. And now they've gone one step further. You have an app. So now you can buy a movie ticket in your car on the way to the movie theater and get out of line. So the sticky spot is not always what you think it is. But I'm willing to bet if you ask your customers, they'll tell you. In your own industry, what's the sticky spot? What are some big sticky spots? Is it the time it takes to get a technician? Is it the time it takes to get support over the phone? Is it getting parts? Is it product knowledge? Is it having to deal with suppliers who are slow to ship you the equipment that you need for your customers? It might be different for each and every one of you. It might be common among your industry. But it's important that you understand this and get not only your customers to understand and share their experience with you, but to get your vendors on board so they can help you alleviate your sticky spots. Because you don't want to piss off your customers because your vendor isn't working with you. And finally, I want you to stop treating your customers equally. All right, you guys down with that? I want you to stop treating them equally. I want you to start treating them fairly. You're going to have customers that pay your rent. You have customers that pay the bills, that put a nice car in your driveway. You love these customers. And then you're also going to have customers that are a pain in the ass. The ones that ask for the most, demand the greatest discounts, and are the slowest to pay. Should you be treating them equally or should you be treating them fairly? You have limited resources and limited time. I encourage you strongly to decide where your resources can go. It would be nice to treat everybody the same, but you know what? They're not going to appreciate it because you're going to have customers with dreams and fantasies. And why would you bust your butt for them? Understand who your clients are, who your great clients are, and where your money's coming from. Because it's amazing. I see this in so many industries. They look at their customers, and they're all different. People acknowledge that they're all different, but they're like, yeah, they're generally the same. They believe their clients are generally the same. Same industry, same size, same number of people. But if you look a little closer, you realize just how different they are. That every customer has a unique set of expectations, right? Based on fact, fiction, and imagination. Thank you. Fact, fiction, and imagination. And it is up to you to understand their expectations and to manage them. Because you have to understand, at the end of the day, you are not selling IT services. You're not selling cloud software and all this other stuff. No. You are selling a service that allows people to do whatever it is they want to do, right? Nobody asks for cloud services because they really love the cloud. They ask for cloud services because they need to accomplish a task. And it's up to you to tell them what they need to do to be able to accomplish that task. That's what it is. And it doesn't matter whether you're selling cloud services or servers or phone systems or VoIP, or you're a plumber or a lawyer or a doctor. People have a need, and they expect that need to be fulfilled, and that's why they're calling to you. Because at the end of the day, what you're truly selling, if you do everything right, if you manage their expectations, if you give them what they want, if you avoid the sticky spots and make their life stress-free, what you're really selling is happiness. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mark. That was a really revealing and exciting and riveting presentation on marketing. I'm sure it's changed a lot of people's attitudes on how they look at customers, because I myself, I know I've been in many situations, and I've had a sales team that often comes up and says, we've got to do this for a customer, and we absolutely have to go and deliver this free service because something went wrong. It falls right into what you're saying, and I'm sure it's changed. Perhaps the outlook that many of us, or some of us, will have with respect to how they treat their customers. So, anybody have any questions?
No?
Great. Well,
There's one. You know what? I've gotten this asked a lot. The relationship with SLAs and everything I've talked about. All right, you all have SLAs? SLAs is your starting point. All right, because I can tell you, can I be candid? SLAs don't mean shit when your customer's pissed off. The worst thing you can do is pull out your SLA and say, we'll be there tomorrow, because it's in the SLA. All right? It's a benchmark. View it as a starting line for you to show them how awesome you are. Because any company can refer back to the SLA and say, this is what we promised to do, you signed off on it, and this is how it's going to be. All right? View your SLA as an opportunity to wow them.
There you go. Great. Well, thank you so much.
Thank you, guys.
Okay. Thank you. Great job.